the joke of the day. Why can't your nose be 12 inches?
Because then it would be a foot. That's funny, right?
Because that joke was so funny, I'm gonna tell you guys another joke. Okay, give me a second because I kind of forgot how it went. What did the ocean say to the shore?
Nothing. It just waved. I'm on a roll, people.
I need friends. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new, hi, I hope you subscribe. I make a lot of random videos. So for today, I wanted to show you guys how I made a kitchen island all from scratch. If you've been watching my videos for a long time, you will actually remember that I made a king size bed frame and headboard. So I had all of that lumber left over because in the new room that we have now, I didn't want to use the bed frame or the headboard because as you can see from back here, the walls are very oddly shaped, which means there was no need for a headboard, and I ended up using that wood. Practically the only things that I had to buy were the 3 shelves that I then very indecisively later decided to go purchase. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it, so let's just go ahead and get started. Here are the measurements if you do decide to make the exact same size kitchen island that I did. Do you guys remember that king bed frame that I made a while ago? Well, we are no longer going to be using that for our king size bed. However, this is a lot of wood, and quite frankly, I would hate to let it go to waste. Not that I would, but I took the frame part apart, and this was the headboard, and I think I'm going to be able to use every single piece, with of course a little bit of scraps here and there, to create a kitchen island that is going to be going right here. So this is going to serve as the countertop, and these are going to be, I guess, the sides. Well, one on each side, and then this will just go on top. I am gonna have some left over that hopefully I can use as shelving. These measurements are not going to be tailored or suited for every single person, just because your space may be completely different than mine. But I am going to be doing roughly from here to here, and then about right there. So those are my specific measurements. Obviously, if your space is different, your size is going to differ, but I'm going to share with you the measurements that I did for my specific one. And a tip is to always measure your cabinets and see how high they are, because that is how high you are going to want to make your kitchen island. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to line these up so that they are perfectly lined. Then I'm going to add wood glue in between and then clamp them. So in one of my videos, I showed that you could actually use painter's tape, but that was because I didn't have these clamps. But since I do now, I'm gonna be using them since it makes my life a lot more easier. But if you don't have these, you can always use the tape. Next, I'm gonna be gluing these and then cutting that. I would suggest to put all of the uglier sides on one side, just because you can actually make them all be on the inside because they will be less visible, and that way the pretty side of the boards is on the outside. I was starting to add the glue over here, but I learned my lesson because last time I had a little bit of glue seep through, and I don't want to ruin this. So what I did is I flipped the plyboard on the side that I'm not going to use. So if anything does seep through, if any glue does seep through, it's not going to ruin anything. So that's a tip in case you don't really have a workspace area like I do. If you are going to be using wood clamps, make sure that you actually don't tighten it too much, because if you do, they're going to start bowing towards the middle and they're not going to be very level or straight. I want to show you guys, if you are going to be using a circular saw, you have to ensure that the blade is the same thickness or the width of the wood you're cutting. Otherwise, you're going to have kickback and you can actually injure yourself if this is not the right thickness that you need it to be. So ensure that you're always adjusting the blade to the measurement of the wood that you're going to be cutting. I measured the leg height to be 34 inches. Don't let him fool you. This is literally the only thing he did, and that was it. I mean, I'm still grateful he helped me. The next step was to add pocket holes to the sides of the island. You're going to want to make sure that you measure the thickness of the wood that you're going to be drilling into, and ensure that you select the same measurement for all components. So for example, mine was 1.5, which means I had to adjust it to 1.5 on the drill bit and the pocket hole tool. You have to use a clamp to hold the tool in position, otherwise it's just going to be all over the place, and I don't think there's any other way that you can do this unless you use a clamp to clamp it down. The next step was to add wood filler to all of the sections that looked a little bit rough, just so that I could have a flat surface. I went ahead and also added wood filler to the tabletop, as well as measured exactly where I wanted to cut it so that it would fit the sides. For the island, I used Early American just because I wanted to keep it a little bit darker. I now had my tabletop, as well as my legs, or the sides if you will, and the piece that I was going to be using for shelves, in addition to the 2x4s that I was going to be using for support. I also cut these little pieces where the shelves would be resting on. I then went ahead and attached the sides to the tabletop. However, of course, I ended up changing my mind.
The idea was to use the plywood as the tabletop. However, of course, my indecisive decided that I no longer wanted the plywood to be the tabletop. So what I did next was head over to Home Depot and buy thicker wood. So what I ended up doing was buying a 2x12 by 16, which is a big piece of lumber, and thankfully I was able to have it cut at Home Depot, otherwise it was not going to fit in my car. So I had them cut it into 3 individual pieces that were the exact same measurement. And what I was going to do was glue the 3 pieces together to pretty much create a butcher block effect. The only downside was that this 16-foot long piece of lumber did come out to be about $46. However, I decided when we do move again, I can pretty much reuse this for something else. I'm not going to let it go to waste. Since I got the new pieces of lumber to be the tabletop, that meant that the old plywood tabletop was now going to be turned into the shelves. And that is essentially and exactly what I did.
This is how I arranged the new pieces of lumber so that it would create that butcher block effect. I also used wood glue to ensure that the bond would be very secure, and then I just went from there. These pieces of lumber were kind of heavy, which was a good thing because it would create more stability for the island itself. Once again, whenever you are clamping anything, make sure that it's not too tight, otherwise you're gonna create that bowing that I mentioned earlier. I also placed a board on the center part just because I wanted to ensure that it was going to be leveled. After I had clamped everything down and it had dried, I went in with the wood filler and I filled in the cracks in between the boards just because I really wanted it to look as seamless as possible. And after that was dry, I also went back in and sanded everything down to a very fine 220 grit. Like I mentioned earlier, I used Early American for the whole kitchen island. Once that is dry, you are actually going to go back in with polyurethane to kind of seal everything, because if it's going to be a kitchen island, it's going to see a lot of wear and tear, and I just wanted to ensure that it would last me a pretty long time. I then created the old plywood tabletop into shelves, and the depth was, or is, 12 inches deep, and then for the length, I measured them to be 53 inches long, and I cut 3 of these. For the shelf height placement, I marked the first one at 10 inches, the second one at 20, and then for the last one, I marked it at 33 inches. I used the leveler because I wanted the lines to be pretty leveled, essentially because these little side pieces were going to be attached to the side legs, and the shelves were going to be resting on top, so I wanted it to be pretty leveled. I then went ahead with my brad nail gun and pretty much just nailed these onto the sides. After I had attached these, it was then time to attach the legs to my new tabletop, and I used 2.5-inch pocket hole screws to attach the side legs to the bottom of the tabletop. After I had attached the legs, it was then time to add the shelves onto the little pieces of wood that I had nailed earlier. I started with the bottom shelf first, and then I worked my way up to the second. So I pre-drilled a hole, and then I went in with a screw. I found this little hanger thing at Ikea, and it's supposed to be for your kitchen, but I decided to use it on the side of the kitchen island because I wanted to hang or display some of my fake plants, also from Ikea. I used the leveler to ensure that it was leveled, and then I only ended up using one screw on each side. These little containers are also from Ikea, and I believe they are about 75 cents. I also got these little fake plant circle thingies for 75 cents too, I believe. I also added another one of these bars on the other side, but I wanted to use it to hang my pans. If your kitchen island happens to be wobbly, I would suggest to use a 1x2 diagonally on one side, and additionally adding one on the left side just so that it doesn't look so weird.
this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. And if you end up giving this a try, please believe in yourself. I cannot tell you how many mental breakdowns I had during this project. I was pretty much making the kitchen island from scratch, which meant I didn't know the measurements. I pretty much just went out on a whim. I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for subscribing if you have subscribed, and I hope you follow me on Instagram as well. And with that said, please have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. See ya!